Last night, I delivered food to an abandoned house. The order said, leave it at the door. Don't knock. But before I could walk away, something inside whispered my voice. When I looked up, there I was, standing in the doorway, smiling like it had been waiting for me. And when every house on the street lit up at once, they all whispered the same thing, welcome home. I am not the kind of man who scares easily. Delivery work at midnight, sketchy addresses, customers who stare too long or open the door half-dressed, none of that bothers me anymore. After enough years, you develop a thick skin, or maybe it's a thin kind of numbness. Hard to say. But what happened last night, that wasn't numbness. That was something older, colder, and much more patient than fear. It all began exactly the way a night like any other begins, my phone buzzing, the delivery app lighting up, the blue shimmer of the screen painting my apartment walls like artificial moonlight. I wasn't even supposed to be working. I'd logged on, just for a bit, just to make enough for a tank of gas and maybe a cheap breakfast in the morning. Then the order came in. A simple meal. Nothing strange about it except the address, an old neighborhood on the far edge of town, a place where people built their lives decades ago and then abandoned them piece by piece, like shedding skin. Where half the houses are boarded up and the rest pretend not to be. The address was written out fully, like someone had typed it manually instead of letting the app autocomplete, 47 Merriwick Lane. That alone should have made me pause. People don't bother with details like that. The second detail came after, a note attached to the order in perfect, precise handwriting. Leave the food at the door. Do not knock. Do not speak. You will be paid extra for your silence. People tip for all kinds of reasons. Silence, though, that isn't usually one of them. Still, money is money. I accepted the order. I shouldn't have. The drive to Merriwick Lane wasn't long, but it felt longer. Every street lamp seemed stretched taller than it should have been, like they were bending toward the road to listen. The radio kept losing signal even though the sky was clear. My headlights reflected off empty windows and dead lawns, and the darkness seemed to pull itself together behind me, as if I were dragging it along on a leash. When I turned onto Merriwick Lane, my stomach went tight. I knew this street. Not just from maps or from the occasional delivery. I knew it because I used to live here. And I hadn't been back since the night I left, since the night every light in my old house flickered to life at the same time and the shape in the hallway started whispering my name. But the app didn't take me to my old house. It took me next door. To the abandoned house. The house that, even when I lived here, no one claimed. The house that never had visitors, or mail, or lights, or signs of life, just a sagging roof and windows that looked like they had been punched out by something that didn't want to be seen. I pulled up to the curb and stared at it. The place looked wrong in a way that went deeper than rot or abandonment. It felt like a bruise on the world. As soon as I stepped out of the car, the air changed. The temperature dropped a full season with a single breath. The grass, dead and brittle even in summer, crunched under my feet like thin bones. The front door of the house was cracked open, just an inch or two. Enough to look like it was smiling. My delivery bag suddenly felt heavy. The note had said not to knock. Not to speak. Just leave the food and walk away. That should have been easy. But the closer I got to the porch, the more something tugged at me, some faint echo of memory, something familiar but wrong, like hearing your own voice through a stranger's throat. I placed the food on the doormat, careful, quiet, deliberate. And then, from the gap in the door, I heard it, my own voice. Whispering. You're late. My blood iced. Every hair on my arms stood straight up. My breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't dare look up. Then the whisper came again, same voice, same cadence, same tone I'd heard in childhood recordings of myself. Don't leave yet. I need you to remember. The door creaked wider. And something inside moved. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Something softer. Like cloth dragging across the floor, or something crawling. I should have run. But instead, I lifted my head. Slowly. Because part of me already knew what I'd see. And I was right. The thing staring back at me from inside the dark wasn't a person. It was me. Or something wearing my face. And it smiled. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen on that rotting porch with the cold night squeezing in around me. The thing inside the house, my face, my eyes, watched me with an expression that felt handcrafted out of patience and hunger. It didn't blink. It didn't breathe. It just studied me, as if I were the one trespassing on its memories. My voice, its voice, came again, curling through the gap in the door like smoke. You left me here. The words hit harder than they should have. A statement, not an accusation. A fact that slithered under my skin and vibrated in the marrow of my bones, Marrowick Lane living up to its name. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt thick. Heavy. As if something inside the house had taken hold of the muscles in my jaw and wanted to make sure I didn't answer. I forced the words out anyway. I don't live here anymore. The thing smiled wider. Not a human smile. Something too thin, too stretched, too deliberate. Yes. You do. The shadows behind it shifted. I caught a glimpse, just a flicker, of movement deeper in the house. Shapes leaning against walls. Outlines that suggested shoulders, limbs, heads turned the wrong way. My stomach twisted so hard I nearly doubled over. Instinct told me to step back, to put as much pavement and darkness as possible between me and that doorway. But the porch creaked under my feet, and the thing in the doorway mimicked the sound with its throat. A perfect imitation. Every board I backed across, it vocalized, one creak for each step, like it was mocking the house, or maybe controlling it. I reached the top of the steps. And that's when the porch light flickered on. Except there was no porch light. There hadn't been one for decades. It was the house glowing from within, not with electricity but with something pale and pulsing, like a bioluminescent wound. The thing wearing my face tilted its head toward the light, almost admiring it. Then it whispered, "You shouldn't have come back. But since you have," the door opened wider. A draft poured out, a smell like old earth and wet stone and something else far older. Something that had been waiting a very long time. You should at least see what you forgot. The world around me dimmed, as if the street itself recoiled. Even the wind seemed to pause, holding its breath. And then I heard it. From deeper in the house. A second voice. Not like mine. Not like anyone's. It rasped out one word, my name. Not shouted. Not whispered. Remembered. Like the house itself was calling me home. My vision blurred around the edges. Memories I didn't recognize flickered at the back of my mind, cold hallways, soft footfalls, something brushing past me in the dark, years ago, years before I ever moved away. But that didn't make sense. None of it made sense. I wasn't born here. I didn't grow up here. I moved into my old house on Marrowick Lane as an adult. So how could I remember being here before? The thing in the doorway stepped closer. Its foot didn't make a sound. Mine did, an involuntary step backward, the porch groaning. And again, the creature mimicked the sound perfectly with its throat. Mocking me. Inviting me. Binding me. I turned to run. And that's when all the houses on the street lit up at once, every abandoned, lifeless structure flooding with that same ghostly, pulsing glow. Windows awakened like eyes. Doors breathed. And from every single one of them, in perfect unison, came the same whisper, "Welcome home." Every house on Marrowick Lane glowed like a row of lanterns guiding a lost traveler back where he didn't want to go. The windows flickered with that sickly, pale light, pulsing in time with some unseen heartbeat. The air thickened until breathing felt like swallowing dust. I stumbled off the porch, desperate to get back to my car, but the world around me bent, subtly, invisibly, like a lens warping the edges of reality. The road seemed farther every time I blinked. Behind me, the door of the abandoned house opened fully. Hinges that had rusted over decades wailed like something waking from a too long sleep. The thing wearing my face stepped out onto the porch, its feet making no sound on the old wood. The pale glow behind it illuminated its features more clearly now, and I wished it hadn't. Its skin looked like parchment stretched just slightly too thin, the shadows beneath it twitching as if something underneath was still adjusting. "Do you hear it yet?" it asked. I shook my head, though a faint ringing was beginning to gather at the base of my skull, something like a whisper buried under static, too quiet to understand but too persistent to ignore. The creature lifted its hand, my hand, and pointed to my chest. "It's inside you. It always was." The ringing sharpened into something clearer. And suddenly, memories hit me like cold water. A dark room. A whispering voice. Small hands, my hands, child-sized, pressing against old wallpaper. A game. A promise. A door that shouldn't be opened. But none of that was possible. I never lived here as a child. I never even visited this neighborhood until adulthood. Yet the memories came anyway, as if they had been waiting behind my eyes for years, vibrating in the attic of my mind. The creature descended the steps, its movements smooth and rehearsed. "You left us," it said, almost conversationally. "But you can't leave a place that was made from you." The streetlights flickered. The ringing in my head turned into overlapping voices, dozens, maybe hundreds. Some sounding like me. Some not human at all. My car was only a few yards away now. I reached the driver's side door, fumbled for the handle and it was locked. I don't remember locking it. I don't remember taking my keys out of my pocket. And when I looked through the window, the keys weren't on the seat or in the ignition. They were in the cup holder. Inside. The creature's footsteps, silent as dust, stopped directly behind me. I didn't turn around. Because I felt something. Not breath. Not a hand. A presence. A shape taller than me now, stretching beyond the boundaries of my old silhouette. Like it was remembering what it truly was after wearing my face for too long. The voices from the houses rose in a soft chorus, like a congregation humming an ancient hymn. My name. Spoken again and again and again. As if calling me back to where I belonged. As if I ever did. The thing leaned close behind my ear. Its whisper was a thread of cold air sliding into my spine. "Let me show you why you left." The world folded. Not like collapsing. More like turning a page. And suddenly I wasn't outside anymore. I was standing in a hallway that smelled like damp stone and earth, an underground corridor I'd never seen but somehow remembered. A lantern hung from a hook, its flame impossibly steady despite the airless space. And across from me, lining the walls, were dozens of shapes, figures draped in old cloth, faces covered, all of them turned toward me. Waiting. Expecting. Remembering. Then one of them raised its head slightly. Beneath the cloth, its face was mine. Every one of them was mine. And behind all of them, deeper in the dark, something shifted enormous. Slow. Ancient. A voice rose, older than language, curling through the corridor like a hand. "Welcome home." The lantern flickered. The ground trembled. The cloth-covered figures lifted their arms in unison. And the creature beside me, the one still wearing my current face, spoke softly, "We've been waiting for you to finish what you started." Then the lantern went out. And the darkness opened its eyes.